famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero Dirk Pitt.
A man's erotic senses are mostly exterior. I'd find myself the most expensive hooker in town. How do you keep a straight face knowing you made love to the man's wife? Nothing like starting anew with a big bang.
Raise the Titanic. Episode 8. Boat horny and stir crazy.
I don't have any amusing stories of my last week saved up, or at least I don't have any on the top of my head.
Well, that's fair. Sometimes being an adult is just a grind.
So let's try you. What's new with you?
The baby I was watching, they found more permanent care, so I'm off of natty duty. Very happy.
Oh, okay.
The puppy we got was scared by another dog, and I lost grip, and he ran into traffic, but he's okay.
Oh, that's an exciting morning.
That was terrifying. I also went on a suburban mom sleigh ride, I guess, because I held on to the leash. It was dragged a bit.
How big is his dog?
40 pounds.
Oh, okay.
He was terrified, and I was surprised.
40 pounds trying really hard can do some damage.
He met another dog that was friendly. Naturally, it was the scariest thing in the world, and he had to make a run for it. He ran all the way home.
He's one of those.
He's terrified. Autumn is really messing his brain up. The leaves are falling. Those are scary. Wind is coming up.
The wind picks up, and my dog has sprinted out into traffic chasing a leaf that it thinks is a mouse so many times.
It's so stressful. It takes years off the end of your life. We're going to make it to 85. Now you got like 82, 81.
If anything, it's years off my shoulders because like I'm holding onto the leash at that time, so I'm yanking a 90-pound dog out of the air.
So a torn rotator cuff is definitely in your future.
Oh yeah, lefty just healed, righty is still kind of injured on top. I've had my rotator cuff injuries, thank you.
My father-in-law tore his rotator cuff with a sneeze.
Ooh.
We're just delicate meat bags in a sausage casing.
After I found out mine was torn and I was, on a whole bunch of physio exercises and like things to do, things to not do, I learned all about what the hell the rotator cuff is and why it works. And it's this little like squid-like muscle. It's got 5 arms, 1 big anchor arm, and 4 little fingies that come up and over your shoulder bone. And all they do is they pull the bone into the socket so that there's the appropriate friction when the muscles engage. And that's all they do. They're so thin. And if you're like not working them all out regularly, if one gets strong, it makes the other ones weaker. And then you can tear a rotator cuff by sneezing.
So this is not an argument for intelligent design.
This is such a stupid little muscle because the physio guy was saying how the shoulder joint is so much less well designed than all the other joints.
I believe that. And the other joints aren't great either. None of them win awards in my book.
Not as you get older.
Oh, certainly not. But, I can hear the gremlin noises you were talking about. It is something. I
think that just happens when you get microphone feedback. The gremlin noises are from after I run all of our audio through the Adobe Speech Fixer-Upper AI tool, whatever it is, which gets rid of all the background noises, makes everybody sound really good. And if there's ever a noise off by itself, it just gets turned into its own monster because the AI doesn't know what word to make it.
I'm glad it doesn't substitute its own.
Occasionally, loud breathing will set that off. So there'll be a stretch where I know I'm not talking, but I can still hear in the audio when I'm editing just like popping up out of nowhere in the background.
Well, I was watching the baby earlier this week, and she made her diaper sing in such a way that it made the puppy cry. And the other dog just started biting the air. He was incensed. He was so angry. I was so
I haven't seen
of
my
him.
dog do that in a while. See, that's what that baby's doing. It's establishing dominance.
Very brown dominance.
What a wonderful job you have.
It's gone. It's good. It's fine. I don't have it anymore. It's great.
So long, babies.
Yeah. Can't even walk, you baby.
Get a job.
I cannot believe how long this book is.
It went so much longer than I expected.
This is interminable.
Because for a while there, like chapter after chapter, like he wraps up the A plot, the B plot, the C plot, the D plot, just one by one. Then you have to revisit, and then like a lot happens.
A lot does happen.
So much happens. It sort of expands. Like, wow, we're reading chapters apparently 62 to the end tonight, so 62 to 82. So that's 20 chapters, but some of them are just like 3 pages long. And technically, one thing happens.
True. Some of them don't need to be there at all.
Oh, there's that.
And if we don't have the weather weapon, why do we have the meteorologist chapters at all?
Yeah, he had 3 chapters. He had 3 viewpoint chapters. And all he did specifically was, in the first one, we meet him. He works at the weather station. In the second one, he sees the hurricane and doesn't tell anyone. And in the third one, he goes, whew, that was close.
There's lots of characters here that have information that they don't share at relevant points.
I think I have written down near the end, chapter 79, I think, they introduce a new character talking to the president.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Hello, listeners. You did the intro. I did it last time.
I can't keep track. Let's see. What's a fun weed comment?
So did you have the same PSAs? I learned from watching you. Was the
Yeah, I remember that.
When Dad finds the weed. This is your brain on drugs.
something fried egg.
That was the second iteration of that commercial.
Welcome to Cussler Hustlers, the only Clive Cussler podcast that learned it from watching you. Tonight, we are somehow finishing off Raise the Titanic. We didn't plan for this to go to 8 episodes, but here we are. We have to get this out of the way because there's no way to really split this in 2. The end of this book does not chop well. So, this might be one really big episode, and for that, I'm sorry. I'm your co-host, Topper, and staring at me funny is my co-host, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. This is a weird book. It's not very long, but it's taken a lifetime to get through. And I like it. It's just, it takes turns.
Last week, we ended with the Titanic in the middle of the storm. It's been cut loose. The Russians are on board. And Dirk Pitt was in the helicopter when it went over the edge.
Pitt is knocked out. Pitt's getting rest in the helicopter because it's the only way he rests. We've established he either passes out because of sheer exhaustion or gets knocked out.
Yeah, he gets knocked out a lot for a hero.
His skull is... He should be donating that to medicine when he dies. It has to be a soft, pulpy texture.
Either a soft, pulpy texture, or they find out he's like Homer Simpson and his skull is a 1/4 inch thicker than everyone else's.
Even so, when he comes to, he's in the North Atlantic, way North Atlantic. He's been out for God knows how long, and he's soaking wet. There's no hypothermia here. He's cold proof.
Yeah, they just don't really ever mention that. I think there was some mention earlier about maybe fog or mist on the ocean, but no, it's been just a wonderful, summery North Atlantic May hurricane.
Average temperatures in Maine for the North Atlantic are not balmy.
I may have to insert this audio clip, but chapter 64 opens up on the amazing line.
Pitt became aware that he was lying in an upside-down position, on something hard and in something wet.
I somehow did not catch that, and it makes my skin crawl.
Thanks, Clive. Nope, I had to write that one down.
You're on record saying that. Your children will hear, your grandchildren will hear that.
But I guess it can't be that cold, because when he finally pops his head out of the helicopter, and I should point out that he has his gun with the silencer. He tries to beat the door open with it, and it flies out of his hand and into the back of the helicopter, which is full of water. So he just lost his silenced gun. He's our hero.
Now, is there, you're a man of science, is there a reason that you would use the gun instead of any other thing floating around? Why use your weapon with a silencer as a hammer instead of debris? I'm
guessing it's because it's the hardest thing that was laying around, and he has a massive head wound. For almost the rest of the book, one of his eyes will be caked shut with blood.
So now's not a good time to take the SATs.
I guess.
If you were Dirk.
So he loses his gun, but he pops his head out of the helicopter when he eventually gets the door open and sees that he's in the eye of the storm, and he only has a couple of minutes.
And there might be Midwestern listeners who have never been in a hurricane. The eye of the storm is very strange. Nothing happens. It is just windy, and you have these sci-fi looking clouds in the sky. It's a great time to observe this. I didn't take a gummy. I have no excuses. It's a great time to observe nature or to be boarded by Russians, one or the other.
Phrasing.
But like, yeah, his helicopter is wedged along the side like a spoon rest.
Yeah.
Not like the kind you put in your oven, the kind that attaches to the pot. So the spoon is up against it.
It fell off the landing pad and landed on the B-deck promenade. Its skids got caught in observation openings like a bug on a wall, and it's just hanging there.
I love the bug on a wall. That nailed it perfectly. I could see it.
Yeah, because I couldn't orient quite how it happened until he said bug on a wall. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
I really, really love short sentences that convey a lot of imagery, and that one nailed it.
The next one does too, because what happens when Dirk finally gets his feet back on, like, the, quote, solid ground of the Titanic is also the sentence I had to write down. No sensuous or erotic interlude with the world's most beautiful woman could match having his feet on the deck of the Titanic again.
We have met men in the world. We've spoken.
We're into stuff, okay?
Yeah. But I don't care how high the sex drive. His brain has been pummeled. He's soaking wet. It's south of 40 degrees. There's a Russian thing happening. A beautiful woman enters his head? No. When's the last time he had a snack? He's going to be thinking about food and warmth.
No, that might just be his subconscious priming him for, I believe, chapter 65.
Oh, yes, chapter 65.
He doesn't need food. He doesn't need shelter. He doesn't need a coat. He needs some Russians and a naked woman, preferably at the same time.
Yes, this is... Well, Dana puts up with a lot in this chapter.
Yes, I was going to...
And she kind of loses her mind.
I was going to say, I might have to turn this chapter mostly over to you. This is a Dana-centric chapter, and not in the best way.
Yes, Prevlov boards the Titanic. His minions, or henchmen, either way, whichever way you're comfortable describing them, they board, they take over, they establish dominance. Sandecker is outraged. Pitt's assumed dead. Prevlov needs the guys to continue pumping. If they don't continue the bilging, the Titanic will sink before the Russians get what they want.
Yeah, because it just went through half a hurricane.
Yeah, in order to persuade them to continue working, he's got to motivate them by humiliating Dana Seagram. But she turns it back on him by not being embarrassed. He tells her to disrobe, and she gets naked, lickety split. She gets naked right away. Seems to be no bother for her. Again, it would be so cold.
It would.
It'd be so cold.
If it's going to be that cold, you think this would be the time that Clive would bust out that description?
Oh, well, yeah.
Since not all of his characters are pigs, all of the Numa men on board the Titanic turn around and face away from Dana.
Which, fair enough. If you know her, it's weird.
Yeah, but unfortunately, under gunpoint, Prevlov makes them all turn back around.
Luckily for them, seeing a naked woman doesn't hurt.
And fairly distracting.
Yes, and Dana uses that to her advantage. Or she tries to. She keeps talking. The Russians are ogling her. Meanwhile, the crafty Americans are not ogling. Not ogling. They're trying to do a thing. They're trying to hear her out of this. And they get what Dana's trying to do, and they're scooting over while she's scooting back. But Prevlov catches up to her scheme, and she's emotionally devastated by this. While not shadowing at all. She's terrified. There's dead people around. No shaking.
During the initial Russian assault, I'm going to be slurring my words a bit tonight, and you can blame Nancy for that.
Yes.
During the initial Russian assault, Woodlow got a dagger in the heart. Our favorite marine engineer.
And photographer.
Woodson, not Woodlow.
Note this time, Woodson is stabbed here in the heart. Yeah. He doesn't have to die. We'll get to that later.
We have to raise the stakes. We have to prove that the Russians are a dangerous and deadly threat.
And Dana does trash talk communism while naked and cold and deathly afraid. Very adeptly.
Oh, she does. Her exact words were, "You show me a communist and I'll show you an asshole every time."
Yes, and something about threadbare clothes. We laugh at you behind your back. You pores.
What was the other line? Oh, yes. "What's wrong, Ivan? Who used to muscle-bound, hod-carrying Russian woman can't get used to a liberated woman from the land of the free?"
Yes, that made me have to look up the word hod. It's just a big stick that you use to beat up pigs or carry a bindle.
I was going to say, all the hods I know are the ones for carrying bricks.
Oh.
Either way. Apparently large Russian women like them.
Who can blame them?
And Prevlov realizes that the humiliation tactic is not going to work. So back to good old torture.
Yes, and he has a goon come up close, holding a knife, and he's threatening to cut off her left breast.
Yes.
Which is very specific. I appreciate that. We get an orientation that way.
Yes. Thank God we know.
If Topper is slurring, it's because I encouraged him to do drugs. Because they're the best. Go do your drugs, listeners.
I'm just having a hard time going back and forth between the tiny screen of you laughing at me and my words for notes, which are all the way over here. And I'm getting dizzy going back and forth.
Yep. He's moving about 3 degrees to illustrate how far apart the screens are.
I'm really tired.
Miles, folks.
Anyway, the Russian guard with the knife is getting closer and closer, and
Prevlov does the Princess Bride thing, like to the death. When I count to 5, shoot her in the left arm. When I get to 10, shoot her in the other arm. And then when I get to 15, the leg, and then the other leg.
That's at the end of the next chapter. We'll get to that, because what happens first is as the knife is getting closer and closer, inch by inch, closer and closer, there's a lot of time spent on where this knife is going. At the last possible second, Dirk walks out of the shadows.
He makes such an entrance. Lightning crashes. He's framed his silhouette again. He looks very badass.
His weather powers are in full effect. He does that 2 more times in this book.
He comes in gallantly, drapes his bomber jacket over Dana's shoulders.
Yes. Very gentlemanly.
And here I'm curious on a minor detail that means nothing.
Okay.
In the 70s and 80s, women or preppies were shown with only wearing coats and sweaters over their shoulders, never putting their arms in the sleeves. It was an indication of wealth.
It was cute.
Or a signifier of snootiness. I wonder if she puts on the jacket fully, or if she just wears it daintily open.
I gotta say,
zip up.
Maybe based on watching entirely too many movies like this, I imagined it just on her shoulders, and she's just like,
yeah,
her arms crossed, the jacket like
that makes no sense.
Halfway over.
Her brain's completely fallen out of her head.
She wasn't using it. She lost it when she was looking for her makeup case on the helicopter.
Well, she's not technically minded, so she couldn't get her makeup case unstuck, and she couldn't zip up a jacket.
I know.
These things are beyond women.
Her life is hard. Anyway, chapter 66 is, I think, one of the longest chapters I've ever read, excluding, Stephen King, because it is a gigantic parlor scene where we've apparently skipped all of the action, well, almost all the action we're going to have, and Pitt just lays out the entire plot to Prevlov and reveals that he knows who Prevlov is, which shouldn't be possible because we've never seen Dirk be briefed on Prevlov or the KGB or the Russians or anything.
Well, as we come to learn, there's a lot of downtime that Dirk has.
Yes.
Where he's just doing all sorts of mishigas behind the scenes.
It's just like book 1. It's just like the Mediterranean Caper, where he did all of that stuff off screen and off camera, and you never see or hear about it until the very end. But he was talking with German naval records, he was talking with the British, he was talking with the Americans, and at the very end he's like, yes, I've had all these conversations, here's exactly how everyone's plans went down. You gotta show some indication of this.
Well, or at least be a better manager and delegate. But they've established they both know who each other are. Yes, I got the deep philosophical point you were making that the author has a duty of care to try, but I was trying to be flippant.
I know.
Okay.
Fine, I'll edit that out.
No, you don't have to. Leave it in. But yeah, Prevlov was doing a monologue, and then he gets bested by Dirk Pitt, coming in on...
Who has a better monologue.
Not monologued. And Pitt tells us who Silver and Gold is.
Yes.
After a long time. Do you remember the Jonestown Massacre?
Yes, I'm aware of.
When they were doing their final suicide mission, he just kept talking and talking. It's just like, dude, I drank cyanide. Just let me die in peace. This motherfucker would not shut up. And that's what this felt like. I felt like I was dying and Pitt would not shut up.
Yeah, they're just out monologuing each other, and Prevlov seems a bit steamed, but then he's in control again. Then he steams a bit steamed, and then he's in control again. And then he absolutely loses his shit after we've explained who Silver and Gold are. He's
smoking, and he's taking cigarettes out of his gold cigarette case and putting them into his cigarette holder like he's the Penguin.
He's just very fancy and evil.
Yoga.
But Dirk lays out the whole conspiracy board for how he worked out who it was. So Silver was Ben Drummond, one of the photographers, I think. He was one of the guys down on the Sappho one. He's been a Russian agent and using sonar beepers while down in the Sappho one to send messages to the Russians. And he figured out who the other person was because it had to be whoever was on the Deep Fathom, the boat that got stuck on the Titanic, and they had to raise it to save them. Because Ben Drummond was super freaked out about the other person on that sub. And one of them was too old and one of them was too young, so the other guy was Merker.
Because Clive is establishing that the other person is Drummer's brother.
Yes.
Otherwise, it could have been the other two people as spies. But one was 8 years younger, and one was of Mexican descent, and that ruled them out.
I might just speed all that up because most of that's fairly unnecessary, and there's even more to it. But Clive fully lays out. 1 second, my doorbell's ringing. Yay, pizza!
Talk about Drummer when he's named.
Oh yeah.
His whole demeanor changes. It reminded me of a story about Marilyn Monroe. She was just walking in New York City, and she turns to her friends and says, "Do you want to see Marilyn?" And she just turns it on, and then people start noticing her right away.
I can see that.
That's kind of what happens. He grows up. He cowboys up. He looks sterner. The drippiness from his eyes leave. He's so Soviet. His face changes when he's
not Soviet though. That's the thing. They established that these spies were two Canadians who were turned by the Russians.
Soviet by choice.
It's a mindset. It's like being a boomer.
And he's got a twin, and we're about to find out who he is. And then we're going to learn a lot about twin science.
Are we? Oh dear.
Yes. Pitt monologues again. He says, well, Sappho 2 was having its emergency. Drummer was losing his mind. Really going crazy. So he determined it was somebody on that ship. And like I said, process of elimination. They've determined it's Sam. And then Pitt goes on to say, you're his twin. You felt everything he felt when he was stuck in that submersible.
I think that was metaphorical.
All the panic.
Was that supposed to be literal?
Well, I read it a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
He was like, this is how twins are.
Oh dear. I didn't quite get that from the audiobook.
So we stepped a little bit into Stephen King.
Yeesh. Well, that's just downright silly.
And what twins are creepy as fuck. They feel each other's senses. They mind meld. So Pitt was aware of who Silver and Gold were. He uncovers them in front of the other crew. Sandecker is incensed.
Yeah, because once again, he knew who Silver and Gold was after the first guy got killed, and he didn't bother telling anyone. And apparently he didn't bother telling Sandecker. And now more people are dead.
But now Pitt reveals he's known about this whole thing, top to bottom, for 48 hours. 48 motherfucking hours. Woodson has a knife in his dead chest. That happened 10 minutes ago.
Unfortunately, that's one of those reasonable casualties that you can expect by just being around Dirk Pitt.
I am not going to his dinner parties then. Oh, and Prevlov has a ill-timed epiphany that it's Marganin.
That happens after the Navy SEALs attack. Prevlov orders his guard to go back to shooting Dana. When I count to 5, shoot her in the arm. When I count to 10, shoot her in the other arm. And Dirk says to that Russian, you'll be dead when you hit 4. And everyone laughs.
Yes, it wasn't Prevlov. It was some brute that was holding the knife. That gets one right between the eyes.
And then there is a flurry of gunfire, and the Numa guys do some tackling, but most of them run away. And that's when the Navy SEALs appear and shoot everyone. Except Prevlov.
Clive gets real funny and cute with seals. It's like normally North Atlantic seals are mammals like salmon, but these seals are Navy SEALs.
But these were the dangerous military kind.
And Pitt, turns out, helped them come aboard before the helicopter landed.
Yeah, no, they've been here for a while.
Doesn't matter to Woodson.
Dirk radioed the CIA, I guess, and gave them all of his findings. And they sent 2 squads of Navy SEALs in a nuclear submarine. The kids are laughing at me. 2 squads of Navy SEALs in a submarine to the Titanic. So while all this was happening, there was a nuclear submarine directly below it.
Why throw a rock when a nuke will do?
So all the Russians die, except for Prevlov. But he realizes he's going to die, so he salutes Pitt, draws his gun, empties it into the darkness, and then absolutely nothing happens. And he realizes he's not going to die. He realizes he walked into a trap, and that's when he has his Margonian epiphany.
Yes. And it's important to remember, Dana's still standing there naked.
Oh, yeah.
These guys are monologuing. She's dying of hypothermia. Or the condition of her brain is incompatible with life.
I think we established in a few short chapters that she may have suffered some sort of lasting traumatic brain injury from this.
Yep.
But we'll get to that.
Yes, we will. Dana's still naked. They're not mentioning her. That's just a background fact.
Also, one oof line, Dirk refers to the Russians as the boys from Ukraine.
I know. That felt so weird.
That's dated. And more bashing of communism.
And then chapter 68 is just the slaughter of Canadians.
Yeah, it's an entire chapter of how Hurricane Amanda just wipes out Newfoundland. And then the weather guy, Prescott, just like goes to bed.
Now, 68 was devastation to Canada. Scores of people killed. 69, the chapter 69, meteorologist Prescott is tired. He toasts the Titanic while he's alone, speaking to no one. The entire chapter 69 was a meteorologist who's in a room by himself. Who spoke to no one about the storm. What? We need this chapter.
I feel that may have been edited out.
Picture in 3 words. Yeah, we get 3 chapters of this guy for no reason. Do they owe somebody money? Have to write in a Prescott to impress a girl?
In a way, I think that this was one of the ways that he had to pad the book out, because his next 8 books, they're all like the exact same length. They're all 524 pages. So I think there is like a fairly exact word count he was going for, and he's like, shit, how do I add 3,000 words? I'll invent a weatherman.
Oh, like Dostoevsky paid by the word?
And when this book started, you said something along the lines of, you think that Clive has the reverse deal, because he was shooting out these tiny chapters as fast as he could. He was getting paid by the chapter, not the word.
Yes. I was 21 years old when I said that.
That was how long ago we started this book.
That was the ignorance of youth.
That is one of the reasons that we are trying to get this book done in one episode right now, because I was musing the other day that this book has pushed the other 2 books out of my head. We've only done this book as far as I can remember.
We've only done this book, and everything is Titanic. The algorithm puts on a Titanic documentary. I'm listening to a podcast that'll randomly bring up the Titanic. It's about serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, why are you bringing up the Titanic? I'm watching the Gaza get erased. They'll bring up something about the Titanic. It is a ghost, and it haunts us all.
It's like the number, what was that? The number 23.
Oh, Topper, the drugs are kicking in.
Yes, they are kicking in. I don't think they're exactly helping my stutter, though. See, alcohol helps my stutter. This is not doing that.
Does it feel good?
I feel sleepy.
Did you have DARE?
Oh, yeah.
The DARE program?
We had DARE.
You did?
We had that weird... No, wait, that was the weird gender and sexuality mascot thing they had. DARE was the dog, right?
DARE was the...
I'm not sure what it was in Canada.
Anti-drug propaganda. But they brought a suitcase full of drugs to your school, identified each one, told you what it did. So, like, my kindergarten class was like, ooh, acid seems really cool. Can't wait to do that one.
There was a Happy Roadkill comic, I think from just 2 weeks ago, that was all about the DARE guys going school to school. I will send you that comic. Hey, kids, remember, marijuana may seem harmless, but it introduces you to harder drugs. Allow me to introduce you to all the ones I mean. And the kids just have these huge smiles on their faces and going, wow, while the cop says, so this one will make you feel like you're making love to God, but this one makes you feel like you are God. And the kids are just so thrilled to be finding out. We can't wait to get to those.
I think it was also used for embezzling, but that's just the way we roll. Now, chapter 70 comes up with a brilliant idea, but he can't do that in isolation. He owls around. He's got to trash talk Al a bit.
I think you missed a chapter. So in mine, chapter 68 was Newfoundland and the weather guy going to bed, and my chapter 69 was Captain Porotkin on the Mikhail Kharkov on the missile cruiser.
Oh, interesting.
Do you not have that?
We're differently numbered.
Because we get the Russian boat before we get Alan Pitt again.
Yes, I do remember reading that. I must not have made notes about that.
I was surprised you skipped over it, because in a way, chapter 69 contains the single most shocking moment of this book.
The other Russian captain's like, we got to sink the Titanic again, but it's going to make it bad.
Under strict orders from Prevlov, and from what they can see, because now there's Americans walking around on deck and they can't find the Russians, they assume that Prevlov must have failed. So now they're on to plan B, which is pull back 10 miles and nuke the Titanic before the airplanes arrive.
Again, it's a ship being held together with JB welded paper clips. The nuke You could tell when a nuke goes off anywhere in the world. I mean, there's people looking.
Yeah, that was what I thought. Like
But there's people.
They talk about how radar had pings that there were American airplanes approaching, and they would be here in 10 minutes, so they have to nuke it now. And I'm like, my dude, that cloud sticks around for like half an hour. There might be some residue effect from a nuke.
And you can see that they said you could see it across the curve of the horizon. So it's not going to go unnoticed.
My only hope is that the Russians had like a prepared speech for one of our nukes got away from us. Sorry, eh?
Oh, well, that did happen all the time. But I love Captain Parakov.
Yes.
He's like, the guy who gave me the order is probably dead. So it's like I never got the order. Never happened. And he puts the whole Titanic in his rearview, and he leaves.
And Chapter 70 is when they realize the Titanic is still sinking.
Yes, they need fuel desperately. Al is panicking. Again, the girl's still naked. We can imagine she's not in the jacket. It's still just straight down her shoulders. It's just what I'm imagining.
Okay.
Like, why would she get dressed? It makes no sense. But Pitt's going to rag on Al a bit. Like, you're always looking up when you should look down. Shot through the hand. He thought his coworker was going to get a boob cut off. He's traumatized. He's been hit.
He did get shot through the hand. My God.
Yes. He could see the hole. It was described. Like a weird vampire movie where they,
It's the exact opposite of the first book, where it's Al who shoots the gun out of Demetrius's hand.
Yes. It is the exact opposite.
A lot of individual things from the first book happen in this one. He just went for a much, much bigger plot.
Very complicated, this plot. Pitt brings up jungle telegraph. And this is just being on the ship, and he bangs out an SOS. So the first ship to ever issue an SOS was the Titanic, and this brings it full circle. The SOS is now heard.
Yep. We get the change of POV to the nuclear submarine sonar operator. And by the end of the chapter, the nuclear sub has surfaced, and they're... Oh, wait, sorry. First, the nuclear sub raises the periscope to see what's going on.
Oh, yes.
And find Dana on the radio building.
She's bringing all the boys to the yard.
That's a good way of phrasing it, yes. Because she knows how to get the attention of a nuclear submarine.
In full view, waving a brassiere, which we have to assume they could see the brassiere from very far away. So now we've also established she's another Clive Cussler girl that's properly character delivered. Because if it's an A cup, you can swing that around all day long. The Navy's not going to see it. In Chapter 71, the president's hanging around with the CIA guy and Mr. Seagram.
Yes.
Seagram had thought his wife dead, but they get a wire saying that she's alive, and he starts sobbing. It's a very emotional moment for him. This emotional moment makes all the men in the city gay for witnessing a guy crying. They all act very odd. They're not happy for him. They don't, like, one of them kind of pats him on the back, but like backs away because he feels awkward. They
do seem uncomfortable.
No. They all were like, "Oh, he's a man with emotions. Get away." Icky.
I feel like there's some equivalent here too. There's no fighting in the war room.
His wife's alive? Ah.
I wonder if this would be there's no sobbing in the Oval Office.
Oh, I want a telegraph or a lie detector test in there. Make sure nobody saw him.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
And up next, they get a message from Sandecker in code that they beat the Russians, found the spies, and everything's okay.
Everything's wrapped up in a bow, and the President of the United States gives a long, lazy, languid yawn. That is put in there just to illustrate how powerful and unimpressive he is. It is illustrating mediocrity.
Well, because now the president, assumes, whew, I'm not going to jail.
Yep, he does assume that. In light of modern events, I wonder how many presidents assume they're not going to jail now.
What they don't understand is that I am willing to go to jail if that's what it takes.
Good point. Because if the Titanic is okay and they get the Byzanium, then his project works, and all the stupid, insane spending will be totally worth it. But we have a long way to go in this book, so don't hold your breath.
They make it seem like they spent the entire GDP of the country on this project.
Yeah, like $500 million was a lot, but even in those dollars, I think it was only like 7 or 8. So what's that? $4 billion?
I think that was more Griffin's house.
Yes.
he had that much money. You could just go ask him.
And now I'm going to need your help with chapter 72.
Oh, yes. Dana has huge self-actualization. She really wants a divorce. She never wants to see Gene Seagram again. This is established.
She is so happy about this divorce. She's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. Yeah, divorcing Seagram. Woo! She's so thrilled.
Divorce could be a happy thing. Sometimes things end. You can do it
Oh,
amicably.
no, absolutely. It's just sort of in the context of everything else she's feeling.
This isn't.
Yeah.
This is just glee. This is joy. It's beyond relief. She's incandescent with the thrill of being single again.
And having just gone through a completely normal event.
Is she still naked? I'm kidding. She's not. We assume she's clothed. Maybe
It's been like 2 days now.
Maybe she finally put her arms in the sleeves. Whatever. She hasn't gained IQ points. She's
No.
thrilled about her upcoming divorce. She says she wants to be single, and she wants Dirk Pitt.
Yes.
She did have a major head injury when she was conked out before the helicopter took off. Maybe that accounts for all of this. This is a woman who is deeply in the midst of a concussion.
And she's also still, I think, rightfully angry at Pitt because in one of the earlier chapters, she asked how long Pitt was standing in the shadows while she was doing her striptease thing, and Dirk says he was there before she started. So he just let all that go.
Yeah, he just let, 48 hours. Woodson, stand up.
In his mind, he had to give the Navy SEALs time to work. But...
And I get her being angry. Some people are dead.
Yep.
Some people saw you naked. Not a really big deal. And she seemed to handle it very well. I'm not discounting the trauma.
She saw Woodson get stabbed, and now...
It was a very horrible day.
And she's never been happier.
She's turning that around, and she wants to go to Pound Town. And Dirk takes her into an elaborately staged room.
You say that more than anyone I've ever met.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment, even though I'm sure it was not meant to be. Dirk took her to an elaborately staged room on the Titanic. This
Yes.
boat reeks. That was established. It smells like low tide in Savannah in August.
Mud and silt and dead fish and dead humans all over the boat.
Just the stench of decay and slimy.
And they've been too busy welding and pumping to deal with that. Also, the Titanic was big.
It was Titanic.
So I like to think that Dirk has spent the last 2 weeks getting this room ready. Just anytime they don't see him, he's in there like vacuuming and dustbustering and squeezing out all the bed sheets and just...
Oh my God, original bed sheets? Oh my God.
He doesn't know when it's going to happen, but God damn it, he's going to sleep with a woman on the Titanic.
I imagine all of the prep took place within that 48 hours where he knew everything.
And he was just casually taking his time.
Welcome to my humble chamber, or as I call it, the Love-nasium. Sham pagan.
And this is, Clive Cussler has never cleaned up anything.
Yeah.
Because this is not a doable thing. You cannot rehab a room to make it a fancy sex cave on a recently drenched up Titanic. I haven't tried it, but I'm assuming it'll take quite a lot of time. And help. No man's an island.
But he found a way because he's Dirk. He has weather powers. He may have been able to do something in that room with the weather powers.
Well, they do have a very strange encounter in that they have sex that includes screaming, nail digging, drawing blood, and sobbing. And then she asks Dirk, "How was I?" And he says, "Like a spastic tiger." Such a poet. Then they have sex again, pretending each other is a different person. But they've established that quite well. Like, I'm going to think of somebody else.
I like that one of the questions he was asked was when Dana Seagram is thinking about her future. She asks Dirk, "What do you think of the president?" And Dirk says, "I don't know. I've never slept with him."
I'm glad he's open to it.
Ha, humor.
He is down for adventure.
And then my notes just say more hot trauma sex.
Yeah, hot trauma sex. These people are aliens trying to impersonate humans. Tell the Earth woman she's like a spastic tiger. The females love that.
I was way off in my earlier prediction that by the end of the book, Seagram and her would get together, or Seagram would die. Apparently, it's some secret third option, which we'll get to shortly.
Yes, we will. 73, Prevlov gets a visit from the CIA.
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson is very rumpled.
I rather enjoyed this chapter. It goes pretty fast, but it was very funny and very cynical.
And he was like, "Morganin was our guy. You nailed it."
Yep.
Prevlov's like, "I had him thoroughly investigated." And he was like, yeah, but we were better than you. This Russian guy, the real Marganin, was almost dead. We found his body and we switched him out with this guy. It was a real rush job, and then he needed surgery to change his identification. Which is it, Clive? Is it a rush job or just surgery?
Okay, so what they did was they gave their guy, who was named Harry Krakowski, they like gave him some fucked up facial injuries because they had to have his body be found in the accident where the real Margonian died. So when he was found by the Russians, then by the Russians, they used plastic surgery to fix his injuries and make him look like Margonian did, sort of by accident. Like that, they just thought they were fixing a person up. But the Russians gave him plastic surgery to look like Margonian. And then by faking amnesia, got the Russians to teach him Margonian's entire history.
Which is wonderful.
I got a kick out of that. That was pretty good. I got to say, Clive, that was pretty clever.
That is clever.
I don't think I've actually seen that, and I've seen a lot of movies. I don't think I've ever seen that angle.
It's Clive's first nod that brain trauma could happen. It didn't, but it's possible that you can get hit so hard you could have to relearn your colors. It's a plausible plot point for the Russians.
So the CIA guy tells Prevlov that everyone is going to assume that you defected. You have this Western lifestyle, you like enjoy Western foods, you drive a Western car, you're sleeping with a Western woman. When you suddenly disappear and this mission fails, everyone's going to assume you defected. So either, we let you go and the KGB kills you, or you come work for us.
Yes, the Law and Order universe fashion of like leaning on a witness.
Boy, does he flip.
He flips it. And he flips on the comment that he's going to get $40,000 a year plus a car. But he doesn't get that in writing.
And access to Western women.
Oh, and yes.
Well, that too, yeah.
There's no Russian women. And Russian women are known for being some of the most gorgeous women on earth. So, what the hell? So $40,000 a year and a car, but not in writing. So he goes along with it. I think there's more bargaining power. No, you can get more than $40,000 a year. I know it's 1988. That's supposed to be a cajillion dollars. But has it worked out? Just a new car once, or is it a new car every year? I want details. This guy's going to live off of this agreement.
I think they're hoping that he doesn't realize, either he doesn't realize that he doesn't have much bargaining power, because all the CIA has to do is say, no, we'll let you go. Good luck, you're dead. Or Prevlov really was kind of a pushover and was hoping to end up in the West anyways.
He's like Dirk Liberace. He likes the fancy things.
He went from being the most Soviet to very shortly the most American, because they're his new bosses and he can switch allegiances like that.
To be fair, I can too if it's a life and death situation.
If you're getting $40,000 a year.
Oh yeah. It's a mid-sized sedan. I don't even need to buy a mid-sized sedan. They're giving a car. Now, chapter 74.
74 is just Titanic fan fiction?
No, chapter 74, page 494 is a misprint. It says the Mariana Bridge arches from Staten Island to Long Island. No, it does not. It goes to Brooklyn. 81st Street, Fort Hamilton Parkway. I know that place very well. I've been on this bridge a million times. It's gorgeous. It's a really pretty bridge. There's hell of traffic on it at all times.
I'm sure there would be today.
Yes. It's where I first experienced thunder and a blizzard at the same time. The New York Post called it thunder snow.
I think I remember seeing that.
It's one of the best headlines. It's not up there with Headless Man and Topless Bar. That was the Daily News. And it was perfect. You cannot get better than it.
Oh, there was an amazing tweet by Michael Swain earlier where he hopes that if Trump eventually dies from his Adderall addiction, the headline will be Pillsbury Doughboy.
Oh, that is beautiful too. It's a little bit deep, but I understand.
That was one of the funniest things I've read.
But yeah, this bridge does not go to Long Island.
Well, this wasn't his specialty. His domain is in the water.
Okay, fair enough. We're done with 74. That was just my individual point of contention.
Basically, all of 74 is the Titanic is finally pulling in to the Brooklyn Naval Yards. And the entire city freaks out.
And there is a Navy captain, Mooney, who has to convince his men. No. He's a fire captain. He says something, they do it. That's how the fire department operates. But he's going to convince his men to do the celebratory hose and siren thing for the Titanic.
Yeah.
Like it's some schlub walking into port. It's the Titanic. You just do it. But it's there. The scene was depicted as crowds. Everybody, people from California walked to the Narrows Bay. Everyone in America is watching this boat come in.
The entire city has stopped. The entire city is holding its breath. They're staring. We get different...
He's got to convince his guys. Bring out the hoses.
And he just writes all this lurid purple prose about the Titanic rolling in from the points of view of that fire captain and 3 different reporters.
Yes. And then on to 75. Pitt escapes... Well, not really escapes. He slips the reporters from the Titanic.
Yeah.
They're not from the Titanic. They're greeting the Titanic. And he goes to a fancy hotel. He's trying to check in, but he looks like a homeless person.
Yeah, the cab driver was like, why do you want to go to the most expensive hotel? Probably thought he was about to drop off a serial killer. And then in the hotel, yeah.
In the hotel, he tries to come up with a fancy plan, like, oh, I'm Dr. Hoppenstein, and I lost my passport. But somebody comes up behind him and puts down a black card and says, just get him a room, put it on my tab. The hotel clerk is very impressed by the person who slammed down the card. It's Gene Seagram.
He's back.
Yes, Gene followed him because he saw him slip the reporters at the Titanic at the shipyard. So he followed him to this hotel. A few things. The Navy Yard is in Brooklyn. He would not get a cab. The cabs are in Manhattan. Always have been. The only way you'd catch a cab in Brooklyn was if somebody was coming from Manhattan to Brooklyn. And for that to occur, you have to get in and close the door and say where you have to go, or else they'll kick you out. They can't do that once you have the door closed. But they don't like to leave their island.
Sure.
So you can catch one on a return trip, but they're not native out there. You're not catching one in the wild. Never, ever.
Good to know.
So that was hilarious. Just local color. And then there's a sea of humanity between Gene and Pitt. And Gene's able to follow this guy?
Yeah.
That's remarkable. His skills, he should be in Numa.
Well, he's just that much of a scientist.
Well, his brain would be safer if he was in Numa.
The scene fast forwards to them in Dirk's fancy hotel room. And Dirk's in the bath, Seagram's on the toilet, and they're both drinking vodka.
Well, you're either going to solve problems or create them, right? I have never spoken to a person while they're in the bathtub. That wasn't my husband. That is so weird.
Yeah, that did seem like an odd visual.
I wouldn't talk to a girlfriend, or a business person. These two are business peers, essentially.
Yeah.
Let's hang out in the bathroom.
But Dirk really needs a bath.
Dirk really needs to bath and to emotionally abuse this very delicate man. He breaks his brain.
Yeah, it makes what happens last even more dramatic. So they talk about Dana. Pitt's like, forget Dana. Go buy a hooker and go be in charge of Metasection.
Dirk is tearing him down and building him up. He's like, you're not so ugly.
Yeah.
You're going to be famous at the end of this. Clear off your desk. You'll find
Leave her behind.
all the fish in the sea.
Yeah, you're lashed onto her. Go find somebody who respects your drive. You're right. He does tear Seagram down and then try and build him back up again.
With not within that order. He's tearing him down, building him up. He's tearing him down. It's really not nice.
Over these next 8 hours, you will be broken down to the level of infants, then rebuilt as functional members of society, then broken down again, then lunch, then, if there's time, rebuilt once.
There's a great Simpsons line I'll have to use for that.
And this was the last straw. Seagram's elevator no longer goes to the top. And we'll get back to that.
He looks in the mirror and is spooked by the ghost of Joshua Hayes Brewster. And he punches the mirror and runs out of the bathroom.
And Dirk does nothing. A distressed man with nuclear secrets.
He has bath and a vodka. What's he going to do?
Government files.
Oh, God, you're right. A distressed man with nuclear secrets was not how I imagined Seagram, but that's very much who he is at the moment. But Dirk doesn't care. He's like, I'm sure he just thinks that Seagram's not being sufficiently manly.
The man's upset. Let him cry in peace, alone, as he should.
And chapter 76 is a big one.
Yeah. Dana is back at Marie's apartment. Marie's her best friend. And Marie is knocked up. She's got a bun in the oven.
Yes, from freaking Donner.
Yes.
So once again, it's 9 months later, and we have worked our way around to the whole baby theme again.
Oh, I guess we're getting a baby out of this book one way or another. Clive must have been feeling maternal. He was squeezing a baby out of this book.
I guessed it would be Seagram. Instead, it was Donner and Marie, the comic relief.
Yes. And Marie's like, women's magazines are calling nonstop.
Yes.
You can't go around like a basic bitch. You got to get yourself together. Dana's like, I am. I'm going to get money out of these magazines, these women-oriented magazines. Very clear line there. They're calling nonstop, and she's going to get all the money for the book deals and the public speaking and so forth, because she wants to be free in the world. And that's great. Not terribly interesting, but good for her.
And then, out of nowhere, it dives back into her backstory that we've never gotten until now. And apparently her whole childhood was traumatized, and she had a rough childhood, and she's finally shedding her trauma. She blames the marriage with Seagram on herself and says she just doesn't have it in her to have a healthy relationship. I'll go it alone so I never hurt anyone again. And this is her happy ending for the book. She technically doesn't come back after this conversation.
No, she's ecstatic, though.
I'm fucked up. I could never have a healthy relationship. I am going to completely internalize and not have close connections with people. Fuck yeah, feminism.
Well, yeah, that's the patriarchy.
I don't think Clive was using his most enlightened brain when he wrote Dana's big ending here.
Maybe he joined a cult, because this is like very Est speak. I don't know. Est was like Mary Kay and the Moonies together. It was an 80s thing that married couples did, which he wrote this book in the 70s, so he's very omniscient or prescient. And they bring up Marie says the frog is dead, and that's how they did pregnancy tests, but it's not a frog, it's a rabbit. They used to inject the urine of women into the ovaries of rabbits and kill the rabbit and see if the ovaries enlarged. If they enlarged, the woman was pregnant. This does happen. That was a pregnancy test.
Okay. I mean, I guess it works.
And if you're pregnant, you would say the rabbit is dead.
Alrighty.
It's just something they reference in the book, and it must have still been in the zeitgeist.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that being something that somebody, he's in his, late 40s in the 70s, so he was definitely around much, much earlier than that.
Oh, yeah. So he was definitely in the club that knew the rabbit was dead.
Yeah, if he was raised in the 30s.
Yeah, that was the nomenclature.
And then the point of view changes, and we're with the president, and we get introduced to a brand new character, Burdick. And I can't tell which one of them is the Democrat and which one's the Republican, but he's like the Senate opposition leader. They're party opposites. They vote the complete opposite in the Senate. But behind closed doors, they're warm, intimate friends.
Yes, and this is often the case. There is a famous commercial about climate change with Newt Gingrich and Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, was that them like high-fiving or something?
They're on a beach and they're talking about climate change. It's very old, but like they were friends.
Sure.
Mortal enemies, but also best friends.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg was best friends with Samuel Alito, who's a walking bag of ashes. There's nothing redeemable about him.
I think that happens all the times with celebrities who are too close to politicians.
Oh, we have no history of that here.
Once you have that certain level of like wealth and personal income, it doesn't matter if you're one side or the other.
No, it's just the game. It's your day job.
You're friends. You're now in the same class. You have the same interests.
Yes, and the people that aren't in your class are other.
Let's go meet some Supreme Court justices.
All right. You can do that real easy. They made Clarence Thomas. They wanted to get his opinion to sway in their favor, so they planted a friend. There's just a guy they had wandering outside the court in like near golf courses who had similar interests on paper. He was schooled up to have these interests, and he made friends with Clarence Thomas. It was all by design.
Huh. I knew about his very Nazi-oriented donor. I didn't know that he had a paid crisis actor best friend.
That's how that guy got to know him. It was the Nazi guy.
Oh.
He hired an actor, essentially, to...
I didn't know that was the... Wow, I didn't know that was the backstory. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's so odd. It's so simple, because these people don't use any technology. He's never sent an email. So he just comes across a friend. He's like a man in a meadow. He's not judging anything. He's not critical. He's like, oh yeah, this guy likes the same movies I like. Let's go hang out.
We have an issue like that happening right now in Canada with the Premier of Ontario, Rob Ford. That they have lots of footage of him like being in Parliament on his phone doing stuff. But records were released that he has not used his government phone in 3 months and has sworn he does not have another phone.
I love when people argue when evidence is to the contrary. The balls.
He's currently in the middle of a $6 billion real estate scandal right now.
Didn't his brother die of cocaine?
Yes, that was the other Ford. That's our dynasty up here.
Congratulations.
We're so proud. Anyway, I got sidetracked from intimate friends there. It's Burdick who tells the president that, actually there's a really long screed here, I guess, from Clive about how the country has been bankrupt since 1942. Like, they don't have any money. The country has been broke for 50 years. Lawyers and politicians are ruining it. And then all that circles around to them finding out about Metasection and you wasting all this money.
Yes. And Burdick's like, pass my bills, pass my children's with cancer, need puppies bill.
Underprivileged kids medical bill. Yeah.
Yes.
Outstanding.
And the president gives him this, we're broke, goddammit. And reality, as you know it, is about to collapse. The empire is on the precipice of disaster. And then the next hour, we don't get the entirety of the speech, but Burdick is chastened and is not going to blackmail the president.
Yeah, because the president tells him what Metasection is.
Yeah. And then the president goes on to his booty call because he got a call from Dana.
Yes.
Or his secretary got a call from Dana in the middle of this meeting.
Yeah. Dana wanted to meet at 4:15 to talk about that boat in a bottle. And the president's like, no. Change it to 7:30 on my presidential yacht.
And that's not odd at all. Everybody's like, naturally, of course.
Yeah, okay. Well, don't forget, he is the swinging bachelor president.
Yes, they would have been all over him with cameras. But, in chapter 77,
We're so close.
they're back on board the Titanic.
Yes, I almost forgot that this book was about some boat.
We can do it. Yes, they're back on board the Titanic. Safety last. They're going to take the door off. A big safe.
Well, this was great, yeah.
The door's been on 70 plus years. They took the hinges off. The door is still on. The lock has been disabled. The door still won't come off. It is cemented on with sea slime. So they've got a crane outside. A cable to the safe door. The crane's outside. And the guys are just going to hang out in the room while they go, heave ho.
While
That could go wrong.
a steel cable gets tighter and tighter next to them.
And they watch slowly as the metal of the door safe cracks like shrapnel.
It's cast iron. Cast iron shatters.
It really does. You don't think of metal as shattering, but metal is some materials are quite brittle.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the first lessons we learned in my engineering courses about the difference between wrought iron and cast iron. You get to learn about hardness and stress and strain fractures. And you get these fun curves, and like a big long curve is metal that can stretch for a long time. And then a perfectly vertical line and then a perfectly horizontal line that's cast iron. It's completely fine till it explodes.
Much like carbon fiber.
Doesn't stretch, doesn't deform. Just 0 to broken.
No plasticity. You see, you went to school to learn these facts. The rest of us just watch people on reality shows make swords. That's how we learn about the metals.
Overall, sir, your weapon will kill.
Ah, God, me too. Forged in fire never gets old.
Seen so many episodes against my will.
I think I've seen every episode twice. For a while, that was just one of the things that we always recorded, because we would always record...
You recorded it? It's on all the time.
Okay, but when our kids were smaller, we would always record Alton Brown, Iron Chef, and Forged in Fire. Because anybody could put any one of those on in the background and it was fine. So everyone we've passively seen every Forge and Fire. It's great white noise.
Yes, primarily white.
Well, they know black people can't blacksmith. That was never a skill that they developed in your country at any point in history.
Back on the Titanic, they're blowing the safe open for the Byzanium.
Yes.
So therefore, the whole gallon of Napoleon ice cream is on the line here. They open the deck and nada. Just regular item 4, driveway gravel.
Yes.
And a dead guy who's still juicy.
A wet dead guy and some rocks.
Yes. The smell must have been fantastic.
There was a lot of explaining about why he's still wet and why he's only partially decomposed and how much moisture in the air, how much, pardon?
He was in Tupperware.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And they put it in a freezer.
preserved, but even the best Tupperware, after, 80 years, the food's going to go a little funky. But yeah, there's no Byzanium.
There's no Byzanium, and the way to fix this problem is to bring the mineralogist to the rock. But hit him hard with it. That'll help everything.
Yeah.
At least that's what Seagram thinks. He has departed from reality completely.
There is a Lovecraftian complete mental breakdown of Seagram at the end of this chapter. It goes on for a long time.
Does he have the energy for it? Is he eating? Is he sleeping? Does he have enough calories to get to this point? He should be able to push him over with a feather.
He's just so happy to be reunited with his wife, which is totally just about to happen.
He's just so manic. He's got the strength of 10 men.
He loses his mind. He shakes Brewster's head off of his corpse. He knocks out the mineralogist.
There's some nod to Shakespeare, talking to the skull.
Alas, poor Seagram, I knew him well.
I would never get to use this. Ichabod. And that was a visual effect for all of you listening. I'm sure you appreciate that.
There was a skull.
Yeah, I have a skull. A real skull. I'm not going to tell you how I got it.
Whoa.
So they're all in big trouble now. After Seagram's brain broke, their alibis broke. They're all like, oh, the Sicilian project. We can't tell people it's pizza. That's not going to fly.
Yeah, the next chapter is Donner and Sandecker having breakfast, and they talk about how Congress has nailed them all, and they've all been subpoenaed before the Congressional Budget Oversight, and the Admiral, and even Seagram has to testify, and he's currently having a manic depressive psychotic break in a mental ward.
Well, what kind of testimony are you going to get from him? What did that? Put that on the record. Notarize it.
It was the ghosts.
It was purple waffle.
And possibly the funniest line Clive Cussler has written when Sandecker laments, "Oh, the woes of democracy. Everything has to be open and honest."
Sweet summer child he was. I also put the getting dragged in front of the Ways and Means Committee and the Budgetary Committee. Ooh, nothing could happen. There's never consequences.
Not for a long time, I feel, or at least they weren't public.
Yeah, shame was a big factor. People used to pretend to have that.
Yeah.
It was a concept that was done away with a long time ago. But, my high friend, we're up to chapter 80.
Oh my God. Yes, because at the end of Donner and Sandecker's discussion, they say that Pitt will be the first witness called. But he can't. He's disappeared. He's gone looking for Southby.
And they don't.
And Sandecker's like, who the hell is Southby? What's going on? Why can't I control my star employee?
On his off time.
Woohoo.
The Reddit anti-war crowd would have a lot to say about this.
Chapter 80. We're so close.
But yeah, it's off in England, driving around a rainy England until he sees an obscured sign. Chapter 80 done.
Well, there's a bit more than that, but that's basically it. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of backstory. He spent the last week sort of recapping Brewster's journey with the Byzanium across England, England and Scotland, hitting all the towns, hitting all the places they hit, seeing where all the miners were buried. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things from the conspiracy board. A lot of facts get brought up. But in the end...
The Coloradans are brought back to the front. So the men on this long ago mission were buried as they died, one by one. They were picked off. So the last two remaining survivors, one dies, the other one buries the Byzanium with him. It is very convoluted. And they do attribute this to a madman, which I appreciate. Because otherwise, this is a crazy plan.
It is crazy, but it does kind of make sense. I had to spend some time piecing it apart. So, yes, we find out that the last person to die, where did I have his name? It was Alvin something. I'm looking at all my notes. Vernon Hall. Beat you by 1 second. Anyway, yeah, so the last person to die was Vernon Hall. And Brewster assumed that the French spies were going to keep hounding him, even if he got on the Titanic. So he loaded up the Titanic with the gravel and wrote all of his notes down in his diary and gave that to whoever was at the church in England. And he figured if he makes it across the ocean, he'll tell the Americans where the Byzanium is. If he doesn't make it across the ocean, the Americans will check the safe, realize it's empty, and use his notebook to go to where the Byzanium is.
His notebook was very coded because he was crazy, and he was secrets. And oddly, he did not trust a member of the clergy. for whatever reason. So he deeply coded his notes.
But since the Titanic sank, the Americans never found out that that was only gravel. Brewster died, and the notebook never surfaced because the Titanic went down. Like, there's no need for the notebook to ever surface again. So because the friggin' boat sank, nobody found the Byzanium until just now, because Dirk found the sign that still had in like rough hand-painted lettering on it, Southby, the town that was like no longer even on British maps.
Yes, it was basically 3 cows and a guy.
Yeah.
Not even officially named.
But also a church and a church parish graveyard.
And then chapter 81, we get to Morganan. He's meeting with his handler, and it's revealed he got a promotion. I want to know, in the spy world, if you get a promotion, is it mirrored? Do you get a pay bump? I'm going to ask for a pay bump. I'll renegotiate.
In this world, I imagine you would. Because in the spy world, as you get higher up, I assume you get, higher levels of corruption. So you have to keep paying you more and more so you can't be bribed.
Oh, I would love if that was true.
Wait, are you in the spy world?
No, that you can't be bribed? I don't think this American gets that test.
No, there's definitely no billionaire who is above being bribed. I've definitely discovered that.
No, or blackmailed.
But yeah, the KGB handler says they've had too much contact. He's going to have to retire now, and somebody else will be your handler. He'll be one of the guys at the Navy barracks where you stay, which makes sense.
It does. And he also cites that I've been your handler too long. I'm not as on top of things and aware. I'm too comfortable.
I'm old and fat.
That's sound advice that they tell it to security guards. It's why there's a high turnover rate. People get too comfortable. They start taking naps.
Yeah.
That's why planes fly into mountains. People comfortable take naps.
But it ends with the KGB handler in English saying, "God bless you, Harry." Because don't forget, Margonian is Harry Krakowski. And now we find out that the KGB guy is also an American. So did the Americans, is the entire Russian spy apparatus made up of Americans?
It's a job program.
Because so far we met 4 of them. 2 of them were American double spies. One of them became an American spy by the end. And one of them is the guy in charge of naval intelligence who drinks in every scene.
You have to assume the park...
So we're 3 out of 4 here.
Parks department is on the payroll of the spies, too. They supply the ducks, the park, the benches...
Oh God, you have to have those spy parks with the spy benches.
Those ducks are on the payroll in never mind. I was gonna make a movie reference and I can't remember the name of the movie or the guys in it. As usual. I have to get tested for my memory. It is rolling downhill fast.
Oh dear.
The opposite of Sisyphean? When it's just going to
I believe that's the Temple of Doom.
I'll eat a monkey's heart. That's fine.
That's not where I was going with that, but okay, your medical system is weird.
Yeah. I'd rather go to the Temple of Doom than a hospital.
Yeah.
It's more inviting.
Anyway, so near the end here, they find...
How high are you right now? Are you just a little bit high? This is the last one.
For me, pretty high. So they find all the Byzanium, all the dirt that was used above Vernon Hall's casket. So if anybody who was here who wasn't a mineralogist dug down, they would just miss the Byzanium completely and find the empty casket and assume it wasn't there.
Dagger counters are going off.
So they find enough to run the Sicilian project.
And they all get in there with the dirt.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, sweet.
They're all...
nuclear dirt.
They're all getting nuked for I don't know how long. And this has been in a parish graveyard for 80 years. How many other people have gotten nuked walking over the Byzanium gravesite?
What about the water table?
Oh,
Get
God.
5G. What is leukemia rates in this area?
That's where all the 2-headed sheep came from.
Dolly, I miss you.
But for the final time, at the very end of this chapter, Dirk uses his weather powers and disappears into the mists. While people are looking at him, he vanishes.
With no cape. The man's a miracle.
My work here is done.
I really wish he had a cape with a swoosh.
You haven't seen the last of Barbados Slim. Now goodbye forever.
No, I just imagine he makes the swoosh noise as he leaves in the mist. And the guy he saved in chapter 1 is like, he came from the mist, he departs in the mist. As you talk about people when they depart, about how cool they are. These are men standing in nuclear dirt. They've got other things to talk about than Dirk Pitt's exit.
I'm pretty sure whenever Dirk Pitt leaves the room, everyone just goes, wow, I can't believe that was Dirk Pitt.
Yeah.
So cool.
He's so awake.
Wait, He took my tequila.
He slept with my wife, damn it. He was only here for a minute.
And now we get the weirdest epilogue. We're finally on the epilogue, Reckoning. This whole section gets its own title of Reckoning.
Yes, the sailor that Pitt went to England for in the first place, the guy who I mistook for the other guy.
Commodore Sir John Bigelow.
Yes, he's being laid to rest at sea.
Yes.
Which, if you're in the U.S. and you only have $100 to bury someone, Neptune Society takes care of it for you. Pro tip.
Yeah, this section was actually written really well, or it might just be like the person reading the audiobook.
So relieved to end.
The person reading the audiobook did an especially good job at describing the sadness of the scene and how his final wishes were to be dumped into the sea at the exact time of the Titanic's foundering in accordance with his final wishes. In accordance with his final wishes, and it was a really emotional scene.
It was thoughtful.
Somewhat ruined by the next scene.
It was beautiful, and yeah. Let's wrap it up with Ugly Americans.
So the Americans try and nuke America.
It's a test. They're trying to break into their own bank.
Yes. A nuclear submarine in the Pacific launches 4 nukes at the American coastline.
Live nukes.
Live nukes. There's only one way to test this.
Because we're testing a system for the first time, as we're led to believe. Go with a loaded gun.
Haven't you seen Super Troopers?
Yes. It's delightful. It's not a for sure, or a guide.
It could be. It's Clive Cussler.
He could take it as instructions. That I could see that.
But sadly, California, not nuked.
Nothing got nuked. The red, white, and blue dome held.
Yes, 90 miles from target.
Scene closed.
And that's how the book ends. That's just the entire last sentence is the Sicilian Project was an unqualified success. I wasn't super invested in the Sicilian Project part of this book. I was invested in the cool Russian spies, gunfights, and Dirk Pitt parts of this book, which were very lacking.
It was all made up by the romance after the Titanic was brought out of distress. Because, good God, I rehab rooms. I am doing renovations every day of my life.
You're still stuck on this point, huh?
Yes, I am. Damn it. That means the book for me. I'm like, I got irrationally angry for like half an hour. I burned like 7 million calories, lost 10 pounds. It was great.
Excellent.
Unintended consequences of getting mad at Cussler.
That's an amazing use for this book I hadn't counted on. Weight loss, apparently.
There's no time to eat when you have to read about the Titanic. It's time sensitive.
Yes.
It was a good book. When you're reading it...
It was.
Casually? Metro Lamo.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I really enjoyed it, even though the pacing was really weird. Like, it would be rushing along for 5 chapters, and then you'd have 2 chapters of nerding out naval history and side characters that don't make sense.
I think this was written the last year Quaaludes were legal, so maybe he was just getting a lot of things in under the gun.
You are very helpful with the whole drug knowledge thing.
It made an impression. It was all that was talked about in the 80s. Satanic panic, drugs.
Oh yeah, drugs. You gotta have drugs.
Meanwhile, I was in Catholic school. There was a whole list of things they'd never addressed that were dangerous.
Caffeine, sugar, soda, shiny shoes.
Clergy.
I wasn't going to say that.
But this whole book didn't have to happen. They found the nuclear dirt in England. So if they didn't raise the Titanic, the outcome is still the same.
Yeah, I mean, they had Brewster's diary. The only issue is if some CIA nerd had gotten into Brewster's diary, he could have worked it out.
Or even if it was just a possibility, 1% of 1% chance that it was in Vernon's grave, it's still a heck of a lot cheaper to grab a shovel and go to England than to raise the Titanic. Try that first.
Sadly, all the evidence pointed to it being at the bottom of the ocean, which made for a better book.
It did.
I don't think your book would have sold as well.
My book would not have sold as well. Pitt wouldn't have been in it. Would have been some Navy nerd and a guy with a shovel.
There'd be an actually happy ending for Dana?
Oh, no, it would have been trapped into motherhood. No, Clive had to write this.
That's no good. Now she's sleeping with the president, so everything's okay.
At least once. She's not getting attached.
Oh, yeah. Can't get attached.
Not have any human connections. That's the only way she finds joy.
Because she's had a weird psychological break of not dealing with her past, I don't think.
Or her very recent present. Like,
Yeah.
it's sort of past, but it's like happened moments ago.
But her epiphany was, I'm broken. I can never have close relationships again. Like, no, that's the problem. That's what you have to move past. And she's like, no, this is the finishing point. I made it.
Maybe she's just really an introvert, and this is the happy ending for her.
Okay, I can kind of see it now that you phrase it like that.
Every married person's like, if I wasn't married right now, would I go out and get married again? It's craziness. You can't train a new person. She's just gone out of you can see it to a degree. She's like, men be crazy. I'll just touch them periodically and move from town to town. Like Kung Fu.
Living the nomadic lifestyle.
Just a friendly wanderer. Very friendly. And that's the end of the Titanic. Raise the Titanic.
We made it to the end.
I can't believe you made it to the end there. You look so tired. You're higher than a giraffe's ass.
I am tired. Thank you.
You were yawning. It wasn't, you don't look, it's not like you weren't wearing your makeup. I wasn't commenting on your appearance, just your mannerisms.
I'm very warm and fuzzy right now. The next book we will be reading is Vixen 03. The cover art is an airplane at the bottom of the ocean.
He might have a formula, this guy, Clive.
A little bit. But this one's marketed as a techno thriller.
Oh, this is going to be microchips.
Actually, I think this one is about like biological weapons.
Oh, maybe we'll get the weather weapon.
I don't think we're at weather yet, but much like how there had better be a sea monster, there had better be a weather control weapon at some point.
We'll get there eventually. If we get a sea monster with weather powers, then we can depart this earth in full blessing. We'll get our own little, whatever Scientology says, get your own planet. You transcend. You go clear.
Because I know there's one book with solar satellites that sort of like beam sunlight down. And I know there's one book with like sonic weapons that just wipe towns off the map. A weather weapon is not more ridiculous than those things.
I would agree with that. And we live in a time of Havana syndrome.
Oh, God.
Anything is possible.
That's the power of science fiction.
It's the power of mass hysteria.
Make believe. Well, that too.
Or, really wanting to retire early with the full package. That's me being cynical.
All you got to do is find a doctor that you can split half of that weird settlement money with.
You don't know how to negotiate. Build bridges, man.
But doctors are paid so well, they can't be bribed.
Doctors are paid so well. Well, that's farewell for now.
Farewell for now.
And I ordered the book. The title, ugh.
Vixen 03?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't really do it after Raise the Titanic, you know?
You have the brand recognition with Titanic that you don't get with Vixen. I wonder how that sentence will doom us in the future. Something named Vixen, Comet 123 will collide into South America or something. We'll lose the poles.
Horrible branding.
Magnetize.
Last time we did Raise the Titanic, there was a submarine disaster, so I assume that world events are being shaped by our podcast.
It's the only assumption that's plausible.
That's so plausible, I can't believe it.
So, that sea monster, better watch out there. Farewell for now.
Farewell for now.
This has been Cussler Hustlers. Your hosts have been Topper and Nancy. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Cussler Hustlers.